Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast presented by Underdog. We're here with Star columnists Vahe Gregorian, Sam McDowell, Chiefs beat writer Jesse Newell. I'm Blair Kirchhoff, and we're going to talk NFL Draft. This will be the Draft Preview podcast. And I'm going to start by asking Vahe, what has the draft become? You and I go back a ways with this to a point where it was, first of all, it was never televised. I mean, when we were young, the draft televised, that's what a ridiculous notion. I think it was done in one day or 2 days. I can't remember. That's how insignificant it was.
Also, how old I am. But
it was done in New York, and that was at the Waldorf or wherever.
Yeah. In a way, it is the microcosm, or maybe it's the grand spectacle of the NFL. But the reason I said microcosm is their ability to just control the entire sports calendar. This is one of the prime examples of this. I mean, as we lived through having the draft here, I still can't figure out why people are going to the draft. I mean, maybe if you're just going to the draft itself so you can boo your team like Eagles fans would do, I don't know. But they have found something. They have appealed to the imagination in ways that go well beyond what we might have expected. Other than the time it was here, I went to the draft one time. It was for when Blaine Gabbert was expected to be a top 10 pick in whatever that was, 2010 or 2011. At Radio City Music Hall, and that was pretty cool. But the fascination really, it's notable because, of course, it connects directly to how your team's going to do, and it's all about that. But the amount of time and energy and stuff invested in it, which we are about to invest, is a little beyond me. It's a little beyond me for stuff that is so unpredictable for months to come.
It is totally unpredictable.
Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah, we'll see you later.
So I'm out. This is to tee you guys up.
I love the draft. I mean, I actually feel like Jesse said the best perspective of this because to me it mimics recruiting in college.
Yeah.
And it's the excitement of what could be. I think it gives 32 fan bases the chance to think that there's hope.
The illusion of hope.
Yeah.
It's absolutely it. And that's why think about like Bears fans right now. Their regular season has been the draft for how many years now in a row? No, I'm being serious. Like, this is what you study up for. And speaking of that, Sam, I mean, it wasn't too long ago in Kansas City. I know Vahe's turning his nose up at it, but our own Trez Paylor would own this section of...
I cannot believe you're playing that card on me.
Would own this section of the coverage because what did Chiefs fans have to look forward to other than the draft coming up? The team was lousy. I mean, this was where the all-juice team was born. Hey, will they take this guy?
So Trez getting into something did not mean that it was a nationwide thing.
Definitely not. But I mean, I think your point is valid, Sam. I mean, what's next? What's coming? What could be? We're always wondering about the future, and that's why this is so big. And I think what you're speaking to, Vahe, is the NFL does a great job of turning things into phenomenons. We always joke about like the schedule release. I mean, people tune in for the schedule release. We already knew the games. We just didn't know the orders. They do a great job of making small things, big things, but now making this an event, it's like, I got to be there. I was there for that. And you make it into something that potentially it wasn't before. So, yeah, I mean, and obviously we've grown up in different generations. I remember the draft was on, it used to only be 2 days, but I mean, when it was over on the weekend on ESPN, you would have it on for most of those 2 days and just see who they would take and follow through with that. So I think it is also where the fans become fanatics too, and you can get real deep into this, and who's to say exactly how things are going to turn out, but this is, where all that things start.
And all I'm trying to say is that it seems over the top.
Is this the only question you had for our podcast?
All right, what else you got, Blair? For the real draftniks.
Well, it seems like Mel Kiper played a role in advancing the interest in this by famously questioning
Bill Polian, right?
Yeah, it was Bill Polian, the Colts general manager.
Is that right? I'm right about that, right?
Yeah, pretty sure. And it was the year the Colts took Trev Alberts instead of whatever quarterback is eluding me right now. But that was
Bill Tobin.
Was it Tobin?
Yeah.
Damn. Erase that.
Darn. Bill Tobin, but Bill Tobin was University of Missouri product, along with Vince Tobin. So that you localized.
Okay.
Let's turn our attention that way. Go ahead, though. So.
Well, I'm trying to think of the quarterback that I should know that.
It was Trent Dilfer, right? That Mel Kiper thought they should take.
Instead took Trev Alberts.
Yeah, and the line was, "Who the hell is Mel Kiper anyway?"
Right.
And we remembered Mel Kiper's name in that story.
Jeff George was the quarterback in question. Did you say that?
I think it was Trent Dilfer.
The Colts owned the number 2 overall pick and acquired the number 7 overall pick after trading starting quarterback Jeff George to the Atlanta Falcons.
It was about not taking Trent Dilfer, though.
That's what here's the rest of the story with George out of the picture.
You got to read past the headline.
Kiper believed the Colts should draft a quarterback, either Heath Schuler or Trent Dilfer.
Heath Schuler, the Tennessee.
Yeah.
Okay, well let's talk about the Chiefs. They've been in an interesting position the last almost decade with the draft. You mentioned Therese Paylor a little while ago, Jesse. Therese's first draft covering the Chiefs was the 2013 draft. It was Andy Reid's first Chiefs draft, and
Number 1.
Chiefs had overall number 1, and they had already acquired their quarterback at the time, Alex Smith. In fact, but they did have they traded the following year's number 1. They had to give that up, but they kept the overall number 1 in 2013 and took Eric Fisher, of course. Since then, they have not had a draft position because of their record in the top, 15 at least.
Veach has never picked in the top 22. And Veach took over the year after Mahomes was picked in 18. So, and his highest pick is McDuffie at 23.
And he had to trade up to get to 22 that year. So what is, under Veach, what can we say about the Chiefs' draft philosophy? He seems to not be afraid of the deal.
To trade up.
Yes, trade
He's
up.
traded back just once, right? I mean, he
Sky
loves,
Moore, yes.
loves. Jesse knows every Sky Moore fact in the book.
Just letting you know.
He's Randy Kovitz with the media guide on Sky Moore. But yeah, loves to trade up. I think what's funny when he trades up in the first round, he obviously gets his guy, and he's been right more often than not about that. Not the same track record in the later rounds. The 2 times where he's let it fall, and other teams have forced him to let it fall, have probably been the Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Felix Anudike-Uzomah picks, which are his 2 worst picks of the first round. So he probably feels emboldened by that very small sample size, his rationale to keep trading up. I do think this is a really good year to trade back, but I think I say that every year.
I don't think we're going to see that from
happens.
the Chiefs. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is they have that extra third-round pick this year because of the L'Jarius Sneed deal. So if there is a guy that they really like, they have a little bit of ammunition to play with there now. They, after their 4th-round pick, they've got to wait a while until their 3 7th-round picks. So maybe not as much on the back end there. But I think Sam makes a good point. I would say if you were going to say, we'll talk to Brett Veach later this week, but if you're going to guess whether the Chiefs, especially with their first pick, will either trade up or trade back, you would say trade up because that's been their history. They go get their guy. But to Sam's point, when they go get their guy, whether it's been in the first round we talk about Trent McDuffie or the second round we talk about Rashee Rice, a lot of times they've been right with the guy that they've gone. Even Shamari Connor was a 4th-round pick they traded up for. I can't think of many where they traded up where it didn't really turn out. I know his first draft, we talked earlier, Sam, about Breland Speaks. That one didn't really turn out for them. Wanye Morris, probably still to be determined, but they have not been shy about using later round draft picks to move up and go get the one that they are really committed on. And if you were going to look at their track record as a whole, you would say that you probably would want them to make that move because those guys that they've felt really good about have usually, over time, panned out.
Why does this seem to be a good year to trade back?
I just think that there's a pretty even, to me, split between about maybe late 20s to like late 30s, about 10 players that I think are pretty closely stockpiled together, and they're all at their position of need, which is defensive line. Now, they're, of course, going to have much more advanced scouting on these guys than I am, so there could be some guys that they like specifically. But, it's theoretically valuable to be sitting there late in the 30s because this could be a year where somebody does want to, no pun intended, throw a dart at a quarterback, for example. And therefore you could get somebody who's willing to once get the 5th-year option on like Jackson Dart if he's still available by that time. So I could see some of those teams, and of course those quarterback needy teams could be those teams that are early second-round picks that don't think that Shedeur Sanders is worth, an early first-round pick, and you've got an advantage there. And I'll tell you what's a fun tool is going through like PFF's mock draft model, and you can see that you can get a lot of capital it'll give you the percentage of chance that this trade will be accepted whenever you're on the clock of trading back 6 picks, and I can get an extra 4th pick here. And I think when I look at this Chiefs draft, I say there's no way they're going to go 90 picks without picking somebody, which is what they're currently slated to do between the 4th and 7th round. I just can't imagine that'll stick that way.
I think there are trading back also, and it could be just a few spots, right? Early second round, right?
Yeah.
You can go from 31 to 35, something like that, and pick up an additional 4th round. Pick.
We saw him trade up just 1 pick last year with Xavier Worthy.
Yes.
And there's teams see value in that for sure.
Yep. And you can improve your draft position this year and even next year, right? You can improve next year's draft if there's a 2026 pick involved for the Chiefs. I agree. I think this is a year to trade back. It hasn't been their MO. Brett Veach is, he just doesn't do that.
I remember Mike Borgonzi was available the day that they did trade back, and he said there was a golf clap in the room whenever they actually traded out of the spot. That's Borgonzi, the Chiefs' old assistant GM,
right.
Is now the Titans GM.
Well, and there's also like a now tax on these trades, guys. That's why analytically you hear all the analytics people out there saying, hey, it's always worth it to trade back, because basically what you are saying is you'll take more either future value later that day or the next day or even the next year for people wanting kind of the instant gratification. So, numbers-wise, points-wise, like you're talking about on the PFF mock draft, usually it is sound to trade back, but it's just not something we've seen from the Chiefs. And again, we know, I think the good position, and we spoke about this before, Blair, is that the Chiefs in free agency kind of base covered all of their needs. So what's good for them is they have their big board, they can stick true to it, and they can take whoever is up top there and kind of stick to what they need instead of saying have to take an offensive tackle even if he has a 3rd-round grade, that sort of thing. So I think they're in a good position to do that and take advantage of some of that depth we talked about at edge and at defensive tackle to potentially take that in the 1st round. Take an offensive tackle at some point, sometime in the first 3 or 4 rounds, just to give some competition there. But it's funny looking at these national mock drafts because everybody's mocking them a left tackle. Because on the outside perspective, all they saw was the Super Bowl. I think from us speaking with Brett Veach at the Combine and being around him, it seems much more likely the Chiefs will take advantage of the depth that is at defensive line, where they desperately need some bodies there as well.
Just to extend that point out, if there were no draft, what kind of position are the Chiefs in? Just trying to sort of flip the way of looking at it, like from what they've done this offseason. Are they, better off than they were a year ago?
Might depend on how good Jalen Moore is. It turns out to be.
I mean, I think if you zoom out and listen, they made it without a left tackle for the last half of last season,
right.
And 2 weeks in the playoffs until it all came crumbling down in the Super Bowl. I looked at the DraftKings odds to win the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs are the second favorite behind the Eagles. I think they're tied with a couple of teams there, the Bills. But, yeah, I mean, they're well positioned. That's where they are, and you start with just all the things you think you would start with, which is Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, Brett Veach. I mean, all those systems in place that have won them Super Bowls here recently are still available and still with them now. So now it's about adding pieces and potentially getting guys they think can, slot into places where they need the depth, and also thinking long term, because we know the Chiefs have a history of drafting guys a year before they need them and then inserting in the starting lineup. I mean, a year from now, they could need a right tackle. They could need potentially a guard. They could definitely need defensive tackles, defensive linemen, cornerbacks. I mean, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Najee Johnson, all those guys, were rookies a few years ago, and Watson and Joshua Williams are going to have their contracts expire. So all of that is sort of how the Chiefs have gotten themselves ahead of the curve, is looking into the future. So this is the time to supplement that. And, they've done well. It's kind of been almost every other draft here. They've really hit a couple out of the park, and a couple of them you're still kind of waiting on results. But this is where they've made some money, and this is where Brett Veach has showed the best of his scouting chops at times to get them in a position where you can win with these other people that we've been talking about.
Let me read you some names. Patrick Mahomes, Kingsley Suamataia, Rashee Rice, Nick Bolton, Noah Gray, Trey Smith, Jalen Watson, Trent McDuffie. One thing they all have in common, besides being mostly good football players for the Chiefs, all drafted by the Chiefs, all were involved in draft trades. So they were not, if you just took the Chiefs draft position that year, Chiefs traded out of it and they ended up with these players. So, when Jesse and I do mock drafts, we don't factor in trades. It's almost guaranteed they're going to trade at some point. There's no doubt they're going to be involved in some trade. I wanted to talk more about mock drafts with you, Jesse, but how do you try to guess what they might do trade-wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, to me, I think the most obvious thing is right now they go from pick 133 late in the fourth round to pick 226 mid-seventh round. The most obvious thing to me is, Brett Veach is not going to sit there and watch the draft for 95 picks.
Cannot do it.
He's going to make a pick at some point in there. So, they've got 3 seventh-rounders. That's probably enough maybe to move into the late sixth or earlier in the seventh. And
more likely you'd be trading next year's picks.
Yeah, I think you could trade some picks next year, but it's again why I think if you trade out of the first round, by a couple picks, that you get back another, fourth round pick, or potentially a fourth and a fifth or something. I just think there's ways to fill that gap without losing capital, but rather gaining it.
It's a double-edged sword too, Sam, because the Chiefs have shown themselves to be really good drafters at the end of the draft. So some of this, you don't really understand the opportunity cost where they trade up for Kingsley. You talked about for one pick, they get rid of whatever it was, a fifth-round pick. We don't know who that fifth-round pick would have been, but if it would have been a guy like a Jalen Watson who they got in the seventh round, or an Isaiah Pacheco who they got in the seventh round, I mean, that's real value because they have been good at scouting these guys at the end. So it is kind of both ways where it's hey, maybe you trade up because you've been good at that, but at the same point, it's well, that's another body that could help you and be really cheap for a long time and help out keeping this roster where we know from this offseason, the Chiefs, more than anybody else, they pay their stars. I mean, they have top of the market center, top of the market right guard, top of the market quarterback, top of the market tight end, top of the market defensive tackle, top of the market kicker. I mean, it's hard to do all that without filling in with some draft spots and getting some cheap players. And so, you kind of look at this both ways. This is a good problem for the Chiefs to have, but I wouldn't want to trade up too much because you're giving away some of that opportunity cost to say, hey, maybe you can pick off somebody in the 6th or 7th round.
Take a swing at picking sports this baseball season with Underdog. Playing on their app is as easy as choosing higher or lower on players' stats. Get them right, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Sign up today using promo code KCSTAR to get a gimme pick as a part of your first cash entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus credits when you deposit. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Okay, just for the record, the 2026 draft, the Chiefs have a first, a second, a third, 2 fourths, a fifth, and a seventh. They traded their 6th-round pick to the Patriots for Joshua Uche. And they got an extra fourth in the Joe Thuney trade for 2026. So that doesn't set up too badly right now. First, second, third, 2 fourths, 4 in the first
and they're
round.
likely, based on this year's free agency, looking at a late-round comp pick as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, Jesse. What is your mock draft philosophy? Given that between you and I, we do 4 of them. I think Therese, we mentioned Therese Paler earlier in the show. I think he used to do 4 on his own.
God bless him.
Yeah, he may have been the first at the start to do as many as 4. And, it was... And he broke down film for everybody he scouted. It was above and beyond. But what do you do, Jesse, to figure out your spots for the mock?
To give Therese more love too, always had the all juice team,
and the all juice
it seemed
team.
like there was a annual tradition of the Chiefs taking at least one player from the all juice team. It happened year after. So like they were reading the Kansas City Star, they were reading Therese, and they cared about what he thought. And so it's pretty cool. I know Yahoo Sports has continued the all juice team even until now. So some cool traditions going on there. It's kind of a reading of the tea leaves. Again, we get to talk to Brett Veach. We get to hear him. We know. Let's start with this. From talking to him, me, you, Sam, from being around him, the Chiefs really like the depth on the defensive line this year in the draft. And so maybe a guy you get at 31 is a guy that you would have to pay a 16th pick or an 18th pick or a 20th pick another year. So I just see it more likely this year the Chiefs take either an edge or defensive tackle because their area of need matches up with that particular thing where their board is probably going to tell them, hey, there's a lot of talent here, and even if X number of guys are taken, those guys are still going to be available. So I know on my last one I took Derek Carmen for the Chiefs from Oregon. A guy like that potentially in another year might have been a top 20 pick because there's so many other defensive tackles out there. This year, he could still be available for the Chiefs, in the 30s or potentially with a small move up. So, for that, you're kind of reading tea leaves. You're kind of trying to figure out if the Chiefs, it doesn't always mean something to meet with guys, but if they talk to him at the Combine, I know, Sam, that's one of the questions when we wander around to those guys at the Combine and say, hey, have you formally met with the Chiefs? Is that happening here? And so you kind of try to pick up the signals and see if there's things like that. Let me tell you, the hardest one in the lottery, I know you know this, Blair, the hardest ones to hit are the late round ones. I mean, God knows who they've scouted, who they like in the 7th round. I mean, that is a total dart throw. But, I mean, we've had pretty good success round ones, of mock drafts, hitting guys that potentially the Chiefs are interested in just by kind of taking on all the signals and hearing what Brett Veach has to say and being around him. And he's usually pretty forthcoming with the Chiefs' needs and kind of how they feel about the board and how it might fall. So I feel pretty confident. Again, we don't know what's going to happen, and the Chiefs do a great job of leaving their options flexible. So if some offensive tackle falls, they could take one. I'm not ruling it out, but it seems most likely to me that early round, first round, is going to be defensive tackle, defensive end, because most likely that's the way the board is going to fall, and that's the way the talent is still going to be distributed, where the Chiefs need that guy and maybe other teams don't.
As you guys go through the exercise, this I assume our 4.0 is coming out this weekend.
It is.
So as you guys go through
any preview?
No. Not today. That is going to be Wednesday's task.
I'm
still talking to my scouts.
Okay. So procedurally, like what will I rather expect that 3.0 will look different, 4.0 will look different than 3.0. What's the data input that's going to affect that?
There's risers and fallers this time of year.
Yeah, where are you getting that?
I'll recommend to people that they use PFF's draft tool, because I think there's a free version on there, but that mock draft tool is awesome.
It's great.
And you can see who's available. I went through it last week on my podcast, and I had Derek Carmen as well a couple weeks ago. And the thing that stood out to me that I look for is age a lot with the Chiefs. The Chiefs like to pick younger players. Derek Carmen is 21 years old. He's still 6'5", 310. I think he'd be a higher pick, but he only really has one great year at Oregon. But and he's not great in the traditional stats as a defensive tackle. He had 5 sacks. That might not stand out to you. But he had 55 pressures last year. The second most in all of Division I was 44. So I think he'd be a great fit next to Chris Jones. I could also certainly see them going defensive end, but I think you have to look at the Chiefs will, on Thursday when Brett Veach talks, he'll mention they're going to take the best player available. We know they draft by position because that's the way they've done it in the first round historically. So I think he's going to be looking at defensive tackle, defensive end, and offensive tackle. And to me, the more interesting question becomes, when you use that PFF tool, there's a few surprising names that might fall to them that I think are sort of hidden needs, if not this year, then the future, that I think could present real questions for them about what to do. And the primary guy that falls a lot is Michigan's tight end Colston Loveland. And what do you do if a first-round talent tight end is sitting there at 31 for you? What do you take? This is going to be Travis Kelce's last year. I think we should all feel comfortable saying that. At some point, they need to take a successor. I don't know how often you're going to get a mid-first-round talent that drops, because Tyler Warren at Penn State is also a first-round tight end that's going to go ahead of Colston Loveland. So I'd encourage people to use that tool, but I think there's some interesting wrinkles that I think might force them to at least consider deviating from those three positions I think are most obvious to us.
I thought you were going to say Luther Burden.
That's exactly what I thought you were going to say too.
So I had 4 names on the list, and Luther Burden was another one. I don't think Luther Burden is a great fit just because of what they already have. I do think he's a good fit for the way they run the offense. But yeah, I think how would you answer that? Luther Burden's sitting there available at 31. It's not your primary need. Hollywood Brown's only on a 1-year deal. Juju Smith-Schuster's only on a 1-year deal. Rashee Rice he's only got 2 years left on his rookie deal. What do you do if Luther Burden's sitting there available at 31?
I think the defensive lineman that the Chiefs select in the first round, assuming it is somebody who would be a candidate to come in and start, especially if it's a tackle.
Absolutely.
Next to Chris Jones.
Absolutely, yes.
I wouldn't say the same thing about Loveland or Burton in terms of snaps, just maybe starts and snaps.
They'll play for you, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think the defensive tackle, if that's the way they go, if it's Walter Nolan, for instance, I think he has the Chiefs are different than other NFL teams in this way. Often their number 1 pick doesn't come in and start. It's like you said, they draft for a year ahead. I think because of where the defensive line is now, they're going to need someone to come in and play a lot of snaps.
It would be a massive disappointment if they took a defensive lineman in the first round. They did not start for him on day one, because they clearly had the biggest need at edge and defensive tackle. And to me, both of those positions are also a look to the future. I mean, Chris Jones is in his 30s.
Mike Pennell, you just re-signed him. I mean, you keep re-signing these one-year guys that, it's...
Karlaftis is in the final year of his deal. They still could pick up his 5th-year options. I think they should, because it's cheaper than most edges are getting paid right now. But, this is not just a plug-in for this year. I think there's some future value in looking at those positions as well.
Chris Jones not getting younger either, guys.
Yeah, that's what I said. He's in his 30s already. Yeah. So
let's talk about another position. I don't think we've addressed it yet. And in each of the 3 mock drafts that we've done, we've had the same position selected in the 4th round. Running back.
Oh, I did too.
Did you?
I think you and I had the same one.
Who'd we have?
Devin Neal.
Yeah, Devin Neal. It could have been DJ Giddens. From K-State. Could have been. I love the Virginia Tech guy that Jesse had.
They're meeting with the Miami running back Martinez.
Damian Martinez, my 4th round pick for the Chiefs. There you go.
Yeah, there he is.
I think what's interesting about running back, again, when you use this PFF tool, is in that spot where I did take Devin Neal, you've actually looked at, there's quite a few guys available still at running back. And this is where I again will mention the fact that they don't have a 5th and 6th round pick. And it's another way I could see them moving back into the 5th round and saying, okay, here's where we get the Ollie Gordon is going pretty late too in these mock drafts. So this is a really good class to pick up a running back, and they desperately need one. And I look at the guys that can play in the passing game. I don't know who's going to play 3rd down running back for the Chiefs this year. I don't even know if they have an every down running back on their roster. But particularly, Devin Neal was a factor in the passing game as well. So that's one of the reasons I liked. I think he's got great vision. They don't have a running back that has great vision right now. He's good in tight spaces. I don't know if they have a running back that's good in tight spaces right now. So that's why I liked Devin. I think Devin Neal would be a really good fit for what the Chiefs do.
Like the fact that he's also played at Arrowhead. Played 4 games at Arrowhead last season and had his best game as of the season against Colorado in there.
This is where I'll drop speed score, though, too, guys. It's the old Bill Barnwell from ESPN stat where you have the advanced formula to say this guy at this weight, at this speed, and it usually predicts decently well. Running backs in the NFL that do well 2022's number one in speed score was Isaiah Pacheco. 2023's number one in speed score was Deneric Prince, who they took as an undrafted free agent. 2025's leader in speed score is this Baishuel Tootin from Temple, for Virginia Tech, who I had in mock draft 1.0. So again, just something to keep in mind. We can kind of sometimes find these patterns, and we talked to Andy Reid at the annual meetings, and he expects a bigger year from Isaiah Pacheco this year just from being fully healthy after not rushing back. But they lacked speed and they lacked explosion in their run game. And if you're looking for a type with what the Chiefs do, they love those big, powerful backs who also have speed. And so that Tootin guy following potentially the fourth round, that's totally up their alley of something they might do.
We were not big on defensive backs in the first 4 rounds anyway. Defensive backs, linebackers, tight ends.
I gave him a cornerback.
You did. I noticed that in the third round.
I did as well.
Did you?
Jacob Parrish from
K-State. Yeah, he's going to be their first player drafted, I think.
I'll tell you why he's an interesting player to me, because I think some people will say he's not a great fit because he's undersized. But he measures long, even though he's short. So, for example, he's an inch shorter than Trent McDuffie. He's 3 inches longer than Trent McDuffie is in terms of his length, which is a much better indicator of how tall you play than your actual height. I think Jacob Parrish is going to be an NFL nickel for quite a while and allows you to move McDuffie around. And Christian Fulton, who they signed in the offseason, I don't think he's ever played 15 games in a year. I'm not confident he's going to make it through 17 games. So, and you mentioned that KU Colorado. Jacob Parrish lined up against Travis Hunter a lot and gave up 3 catches for 26 yards in that game. I'm surprised that you could potentially get him in the 4th round.
I would say underratedly, corner would be my sneaky first-round pick for the Chiefs. If just lights-out corner was there, I think they would take that position after defensive line or whatever. So, but I'm with you. So I had actually the other end of it. I had Darian Porter in the 3rd round from Iowa State, a guy who turned from receiver, but he's the exact opposite of what you said, Sam. He started for 1 year, has the receiver tools, but he's just 6'4", super freaky athletic. And we know the Chiefs, they love developing cornerbacks, but you give them a guy who is big and long and rangy and a track star, and they can develop him potentially. And again, try to get him a year under their belt and then use him when they need more cornerback depth in the future. I could definitely see something like that happening, especially with a guy who they probably saw a lot of at Iowa State.
I also see some Dave Tobe guys picked late. I mean,
he's a Dave Tobe. Oh my God! Yeah.
Right?
Yes, that's what the 7th round is for Dave Tobe guys.
It is, because you're going to lose some of those guys. Like Jaden Hicks, I don't think you can expect to play every special
That's right.
snaps. He's going to be a starter.
He's going to be in the rotation
I
for
think
sure.
you'll lose some of those guys.
Okay. All right, so we got one more mock draft to go before we have completed the tour of mocks. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to go yet, but we'll get it figured out.
Is there? We've all done this exercise. Is there a player that you really liked, like at 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, whatever round it might be? That I had a player that really stood out to me with Jalen Royals from Utah State, a wide receiver.
I had him. He was in my last mock. He was in my 2.0.
And I had him in the 3rd round. I just think he's a possession receiver. They don't have that. He plays almost exclusively on the outside. They don't have that. All the receivers like to play on the inside, even Travis Kelce. And he's unbelievable after the catch. Now, he's playing lesser competition. But last year he only played like 6 games. I think he forced 17 missed tackles, averaged like 9 yards after the catch. Like, I think they need another body like that. And they'll get Rashee Rice for some games. We don't know what the suspension will be, but I just wondered if there's that's a guy who stood out to me as I looked through the middle rounds as like, this is a player they could use.
I'll tell you a guy who has intrigued me, and Jesse had him in his first mock, and you mentioned him earlier today, the Minnesota offensive lineman from tackle, from Ruskin, who could be, if he somehow snuck into the first round, you might have 2 Kansas City high school offensive linemen going in the first round with Armand Membu of Missouri. But Esri seems to be a fast riser in this draft.
Yeah. I mean, he's an interesting guy because I think some people probably look and say he's got more potential because he started football so late. But he was a Big Ten lineman of the year. Like, he's got some credentials to him too. Obviously, has great size. I think he's 6'5", like 320 or something like that. I definitely could see the Chiefs being intrigued by it. And to me, the the most interesting question of the draft is do the Chiefs feel like they need to go left tackle early?
Yeah.
Like we'll get an indication of how confident they are in Jalen Moore by what they do at left tackle in this draft.
I just want to put a circle around Texas A&M guys because we saw the Chiefs defensive line coach down there for their pro day talking to both of them. So you're talking Nick Skirton, who was the edge rusher. I had him in mock 1.0 to the Chiefs, and I actually doubled up later and went to Shamar Turner, who is a defensive lineman for A&M later on. But, the fact that Joe Cullen is out there bossing those guys around, getting an extra good look at them. We know the Chiefs love to go into the SEC when it comes to linemen, defensive linemen, that sort of thing. I would just keep your mind on that sort of thing. Usually you put your resources in the places where you think you might need an extra look, and I don't think that's something we should overlook, that the Chiefs seem to have especially taken a close look at those two guys who could fall into their range, whether it's the end of the first round or, second and third round beyond.
Okay, I wonder if it'll snow on the draft this year, since it's in Green Bay. Wouldn't that be to complete the experience to have it conducted in snow? But it should be great atmosphere there, though, just as it was here in Kansas City a couple of years ago. So, big thanks to Jesse Newell, Vahe Gregorian, and Sam McDowell for joining us, and to Monty Davis and Randy Mason for producing this show. This was SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports Podcast.